Every empire at its golden age must have felt that it was gonna last forever. The Roman Empire stretched from the British Isles to Egypt and Iraq, but in the end, there was no straining at the gates, no barbarian horde that dispatched the Roman Empire in one fell swoop. Instead, the Roman Empire fell slowly as a result of challenges from within and without, changing over the course of hundreds of years until its form was unrecognizable. Over the course of history, many have claimed the title of Rome: France, Germany, Russia, and Britain. And whether they were right in doing so is subject to a wide range of historical interpretations. Nonetheless, they shared the same fate as the Roman Empire. They've waned in dominance and influence. Today, the US is rightly the Roman Empire, especially when you consider that Washington, D.C. is a replica of the ancient city of Rome. Capitol Hill is designed just like Capitoline Hill in present-day Rome, Italy. That Washington was actually called Rome right until the passing away of George Washington is quite prophetic of the future of the American Empire. So, what were the prevailing factors that brought the Roman kingdom, republic, and empire to its knees? How are these factors mirrored in present-day America? And can America survive what's coming? I'm your host, Twips. The channel is Intrinsic Kenya. Thank you for tuning in.
I want that, I need that, that's real, homie. I can't believe that.
The history of Rome is one of power struggles that often climaxed into all-out civil wars, and this theme carries through the metamorphic changes from kingdom to republic to empire. The struggle for control is evident in the genesis of Rome, and as the myth grows, it becomes part of the Roman psyche. The founder of Rome was one Romulus, divinely begotten by the god of war Mars. And legend has it that he and his twin brother were nursed by a she-wolf. They were later found by a shepherd couple who raised them up, and that is more than enough to tell you that Rome would rise to become a vicious society of wolves in sheep's skin. Personal vendettas and political vengeance is really the story of Rome, and every other civilization that has patterned itself after it. Romulus, who shortly after killing his brother, established the city, which grew to become the kingdom named after himself. The kingdom of Rome lasted for about 2.5 centuries before it ended in a hostile revolution. At the helm of the monarchy was the king and his heirs, and under the king we had the Senate and the Curate Assembly, which had very little power and authority. They weren't independent since they lacked the right to meet together and discuss questions of state at their own will. They could be called together only by the king and could discuss only the matters that the king laid before them. While the Curate Assembly had the power to pass laws that had been submitted by the king, the Senate was effectively an honorary council. It could advise the king on his actions, but by no means could prevent him from acting. Think about it as the upper and the lower house, where the king really doesn't need the upper house, but is reliant on the lower house for almost everything. The only thing that the king couldn't do without the approval of both assemblies was to declare war on a foreign nation. That power structure and dynamic between an all-powerful king and an impotent Senate would foster tensions in every era. The first Senate body established by Romulus had him assassinated in the Senate. Each senator walked away with a piece of Romulus's body hidden under their garments to keep the deed secret. And these set the tone for the relationship between the Senate and the kings. 7 generations later, the overthrow of the Roman monarchy by a political revolution took place. It resulted in the expulsion of the last king of Rome, the abolition of the kingship, and the establishment of the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic would run for about 5 centuries. The Republic was born out of the fear of an individual becoming too powerful to be held accountable by the Senate, and this became the era in which the power of the former king would be vested in 2 and much later 3 But it is precisely this power-sharing dynamic that would spawn a string of civil wars which led to the collapse of the Republic. So how did the governance structure in the Republic differ from the kingdom? Well, instead of the king, the Republic would be ruled by two elected councils, and this is referred to as the consular system. The councils were elected to office for a year term, and each was capable of acting as a check on his colleague if necessary through the power of veto that the former kings had held. Now, depending on the prevailing interests of the Senate, a council could be re-elected if he served his purpose. Now, the council, who had no desire to hold the highest office just to be puppeteered by the patrons of the Senate, had only one way of getting re-elected. That was by achieving overwhelming support from the public. There is yet another unscrupulous way, which I shall mention a little later. If a council were to abuse his powers while in office, he could be prosecuted when his term expired. In my view, that arrangement seemed much more favorable to the Senate this time around, as the councils were either beholden to the Senate while in office or risk prosecution after serving their term. It was just recipe for political vengeance. Under those circumstances, the walls of the Republic began to crumble under the weight of such personalities as that of Julius Caesar. Now, Caesar held the position of consul with two other generals, Pompey and Crassus. This expanded consular was known as the First Triumvirate. Although the triumvirs were equal, it was Caesar who proved victorious against enemy tribes abroad, and his fame grew among the people, and this made the Senate distrust his motives, even to declaring him an enemy of Rome. But Caesar had already figured from the civil unrests of that century that the Senate was powerless if confronted by an unscrupulous general who has the support of an army. So the Senate and Pompey took sides against Caesar, resulting in a civil war, with Caesar coming out on top.
Send to Rome. Tell them Caesar has won.
Despite Caesar's appointment as dictator for life by the cowed Senate body, they would plot against his life. Caesar was slain on the Senate floor for fear of the Republic returning to the former order where the patrons of the Senate wielded no significant power or influence. The next series of events was unforeseen. The Senate had really duped itself into thinking that Caesar had fallen out of favor with the public after he'd become dictator. A civil war broke out. The faction of Caesar's assassins was driven from Rome and defeated in the Battle of Philippi by an army led by Caesar's generals Mark Antony and Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. Antony and Octavian's division of the Roman world between themselves didn't last long. Octavian's forces defeated those of Mark Antony and Cleopatra in the Battle of Actium, ending the final war of the Roman Republic. So far, the axis of power is in Rome, where the Senate sits, but a series of events during the last century BC led to the creation of a triumvirate. This is a political institution ruled or dominated by three powerful individuals known as triumvirs. The constitution of the Roman Republic was a complex set of checks and balances designed to prevent a man from rising above the rest and creating a monarchy. Under the First Triumvirate, although being referred to as the Republic, the empire was divided among three generals, Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. Rome and its neighboring provinces were, however, under the various members of the Senate. It is the distant diaspora of barbarians and newly conquered lands that were under the generals. Now, this created precedents for the Second Triumvirate under Mark Antony and Octavian and Lepidus.
You should have Rome and the West. And I will make do with Egypt and the eastern provinces.
Once more, another civil war would break out, which concluded with the Senate declaring a young Octavian emperor. I'll later get into why the Senate wasn't threatened by an imperial crown with Octavian. But it is these divisions of the regions under Rome's domain that created the early fault lines for the schism between East and West. The years following Octavian's death tested the power structure of the empire. The Senate could tolerate Octavian as an emperor because he was a pacifier. However, those who succeeded him paid no mind to placating the senators. For instance, Tiberius ruled as an able administrator but was a cruel tyrant. Caligula reigned as an absolutist who constantly humiliated the Senate. Claudia was ruthless towards the senators. Nero asserted himself as such a vicious despot that his reign was officially stricken from the record by order of the Senate. There was a paradigm shift after Nero committed suicide in 68. Nero had no heir to succeed him. When it became apparent that there was no living male to claim the imperial crown, the legions in various parts of the empire began to have their own ideas. For the first time, it was realized that emperors can be made elsewhere than in Rome. In the resulting clash of interests, 69 becomes the year of 4 emperors. By the close of the civil wars that year, on December 21st, Vespasian is adopted by the Senate as the 4th emperor of the year. He became the first emperor with a non-patrician background. This established the second precedent that would much later contribute to the breakup of the empire. Not only did the empire not have to come from Rome, he needn't be of noble birth. It didn't take too long before the idea of the Roman Empire had grown so large that it would be better managed by 2 co-ruling emperors rather than one had become established. The Emperor Valerian introduces in 253 an administrative reform which will have lasting effects. He splits the empire into 2 zones of responsibility, East and West. His successor would do the same. Diocletian introduced highly schematic reform in the administration of the empire. He not only divides the empire geographically into East and West, he even divides the traditional imperial title, Augustus Caesar, into 2 ranks, a senior one Augustus and a junior Caesar. But Diocletian is over-optimistic in expecting this blueprint of government to survive his own departure. In 305, he falls ill and resigns as Augustus. In the remaining years of his life, Diocletian sees his careful edifice crumble. In 306, Constantius, the Augustus of the West, suddenly dies. His troops proclaim his son Constantine as Augustus in his place, but others elsewhere have other ideas. By 308, fewer than 6 men are claiming to be Augustus. A similar pattern of the Roman Empire is recurring. Civil war is inevitable. Compromises are made, giving Constantine rule over Britain and Gaul. But as more claimants emerge, Constantine gambles on a bigger share of power. In 312, he marched south and invaded Italy. Constantine wins the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. His rival dies fleeing back over the Tiber when a bridge of boats collapses. Constantine marches against the Augustus Licinius of the East in 324 and again is victorious. Licinius surrenders after a defeat near Byzantium. Immediately after the defeat of Licinius, he sets about rebuilding Byzantium as the new capital of the Roman Empire. Within 18 years of Constantine's first victory, the empire had a new center of gravity. By the close of the imperial chapter, the now ancient city of Romulus had not only lost its preeminence, but also had no standing army to protect it from the sacking that would happen a century later. From the founder of the city to the last emperor in Rome, King Romulus to Romulus Augustulus, in the space of 1,000 years, the scepter changed hands so frivolously among the Roman nobility until finally it was in the hands of the barbarians.
Barbarians are all beasts!
The administrative structure of Rome, the democratization of power, the division of the republic and the empire had created stability and independence in lands far away from the throne and the Senate. As the power axis shifted from Rome, various regions sought autonomy from the hegemony of the declining world power. This could point to us what is to be expected in the event of America's collapse. The fall of Capitol Hill, 50 states declaring their independence from Washington, or the formation of new autonomous regions. This isn't so far-fetched an idea. The politics on the Hill are hostile, non-inclusive, catered to the interests of a few elites and lobbyists.
All these politicians work for us. We pay their salaries, and we pay our taxes. And what do we get? Nothing!
I wouldn't be surprised if any of the states that make up America choose to desert the pack of wolves. I've been your host, Twips. The channel is Intrinsic Kenya, and I do hope that you enjoyed this episode. It was several days in the making, research, shooting, and editing, so make sure to boost by hitting the like and sharing across all your socials. If you're new here, join the gang by smashing the subscribe. More info in the description box on how you can support the channel and reach me. Signing out for now. I hope to see you in the next one.
I want that.